Hey, what's up? I'm Tony Taylor. Are you here for Leaders Lead the podcast? Let's go. Hey, how did you beat me? Look, let me tell you about this podcast. We got like 5 seconds. Leaders Lead the podcast is about leadership. Not just the leader without, but the leader within. All of these leaders that I'm talking to across the country, well, across the world now, they have one thing in common, and that's that they have overcome some insurmountable obstacles to get to where they're at today. Come on, let's go. In this episode, we're going to be talking to Susannah Rose Stokes. She is a former Marine Corps officer turned founder of Metamorphosis, which is an ecosystem supporting the ethical, legal, and spiritual steward of psychedelic healing. After 2 tours in Afghanistan and a profound spiritual awakening, she now leads with love, sovereignty, and remembrance, bringing service, science, and spirit. Ooh, I read that without even messing up. I'm doing so good. So what's going on, Devil Dog? How you doing?
Ooh, it's so good to see you, Tony. I am just delighted to be here and to be inspired by you.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. When I saw that we had a Marine on here, I was super, super, super happy. I was like, oh man, this is cool. You're probably like the 6th or 7th Marine that we've had on the show. So Semper Fi, this is gonna be so good.
Semper Fi. I'm glad we're back together and we get to lead from the other side.
Yeah. So one thing that stuck out for me when I was looking at your bio, and then when I was doing a little bit of reading just now, it said that your leadership rooted in love, and that stuck out to me because that is not the kind of leadership that they teach in the Marine Corps. Can you tell me about that shift?
That's interesting. I definitely think there is a disconnect between the Marine Corps type of leadership and leadership rooted in love. Although as I integrate my time, I do realize that there were some elements of love, right? Like that we talk a lot about servant leadership and our Marines going first. Like I was an officer, so we always talked about the Marines always went first, leaders eat last, that kind of love. And to me, leadership rooted in love, I got the seed of it while I was in the military, but it really blossomed after when I went through a spiritual awakening, which we'll talk about, because love is really God. So it's leadership rooted in God, which is other focused. And that doesn't mean that I'm forgetting about myself. I'm filling my own cup so that I can then serve. But the whole point of filling my own cup is so that I can be of service in the world.
Ooh, this is going to be so good. I love how you put that. Something that really resonated with me was that after Afghanistan, you had a spiritual awakening, and a lot of people they would kind of like think of that, especially like because I've had something similar. They would think of it almost as like a breakdown. Can you tell me like what changed inside of you during that period, and kind of like what happened?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what that made you kind of have this awakening?
Yeah, where did that even come from? Well, first of all, they're not wrong. There is a breakdown piece. And I often describe the spiritual awakening process in 3 stages. And the first stage is resistance. And that's where the breakdown and what I would call the disillusionment happens, where there's a crack in the reality that you've always known. And for me, I grew up on an organic blueberry farm in Georgia, very like Southern, Georgia girl raised in the South with very strong Protestant Methodist values. My grandfather was a bishop in the Methodist Church. So I was kind of, in this bubble of what religion and what your life is supposed to look like. And that led me into the military because my father was in the Marine Corps. And in Afghanistan, I was starting to sort through those because first of all, I got there and I was like, how could a God allow this kind of hate toward each other? right? So I started, that was like the very first little thought that entered my mind. Like, how could we be at war with other humans who are clearly our brothers and sisters? And then I had a very particular moment that kind of established more of a crack. And
The plane.
plane. And what was happening, I was sitting in our little metal box where we were controlling all the aircraft, and my team was watching an individual be targeted with a Hellfire missile from a UAV. And so we're watching the footage, and this young man on a motorbike, had implanted what's called an IED, an improvised explosive device, and that makes him the enemy. He immediately becomes the enemy. And so we're targeting him, and we drop the bomb on him, and we see the whole infrared explosion happen, and my team cheers. And I had a moment where I was like, wait, why are we cheering for death? Like it's a football game. And interestingly, the guy, we see his heat signature get up and run away. Like he made it through this huge explosion. And that's when I cheered inside myself. I couldn't do that, externally. And it was just this moment of cognitive dissonance where all of my reality of like everything that brought me to war and everything that told me that nationalism was the way to go started to crumble.
Oh, I love I don't love that circumstance. It's
Yeah.
very familiar.
Yeah.
But I love the way that like you're in war and you're able to go outside of yourself and go outside of the training, go outside of the beliefs, and be able to see like, oh nah, shit. Oh, excuse my language. I know you got kids around.
That's okay. Bring it.
But you're able to say like that's a human, even though he planted the IED, because that's what you said, he planted that, even though he did that, but you're able to see that. And I think that's what we need more of. And especially as all this political stuff on, I would imagine that you're not tracking all of this. I would imagine.
I do my very best to not track politics at the moment. Like a lot of veterans, right? We kind of want to separate ourselves. And also it is damn near impossible to be completely out of the loop with politics because of the world that we live in. It's just so interconnected these days.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. All my friends, I call them hippies. Do you go by, would you consider yourself to be a hippie?
It's funny because I would say that when I was in the Marine Corps. I was like, I think I'm like the hippie Marine. I mean, I was literally teaching yoga classes in Afghanistan, right? I would hold like weekly yoga classes for our unit during my second deployment when I got a little more bold. And I've always felt that sort of struggle between the spiritual side of me, the more spiritual warrior versus the physical warrior. And nowadays I don't identify as much as the hippie, but more because it's not so much a pacifist, like, hey man, like let's just smoke some weed and be peaceful. It is a concerted, strategic effort toward peace that's more in the lineage of Martin Luther King Jr. and Gandhi and some of the other peace warriors that have lived in the world.
Go ahead. Clap for you right now. That's oh man, I feel like I'm talking to my soul sister right now. This is freaking amazing. You said intentionality, and that brings me to my next question. I know that you practice with psychedelics, and I'm curious, how did you get into psychedelics, and was there a connection to that spiritual awakening that you had to the psychedelics?
Definitely. Yes. I mean, you nailed it. And during that moment of awakening happened during my first deployment. And then I went back to Afghanistan a second time. And that's when my whole life started to crumble. I mean, I was going through a divorce. Everything that I thought was stable in my life started to implode. And that then led me to get out of the military and to transition. And I transitioned into the tech industry in many ways by a plan by God, right? It was just like these synchronistic moments. I had a synchronistic meeting with Sheryl Sandberg, who was the COO of Facebook at the time. I mean, it was just like ridiculously beautiful yellow brick road. And that led me into the Bay Area. And the Bay Area, San Francisco area, they just don't have the same cultural stigma around psychedelics
Mhm.
as many other areas in the world. And it's much more free there. There's much more curiosity around them. And that led me into working with psychedelics recreationally. And so I worked with various types of medicines, both synthetic and earth based. And my first journey with LSD, I was standing in this gorgeous valley. I mean, I had such a beautiful first journey, and I was standing in this valley and there was a river running through it. It looked like a painting, and I looked across at the mountain across, and there were these cedar trees all over the mountain, and I watched the mountain breathe with me in interconnectedness with me. I watched the earth breathe, and it reminded me of the experiences I'd had growing up on the farm that I had lost. I had forgotten that feeling of deep connection to earth. And so that was the beginning of the what I would call the surrender phase. So we start with the resistance phase, right? Where everything is getting really, really, really hard and crumbling. And then there's a surrender and trusting phase where you start to just surrender to what's happening around you.
Wow, that is so beautiful, and I think that it's interesting that that your first the first psychedelic that you tried was LSD, because most people that say it like, oh yeah, mushrooms or but you went straight to LSD, and
I did.
I think that's so freaking cool.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people when they're listening to this, because a lot of people that were in the military and still in the military, they listen to the show. They're of and I've talked to quite a few people there of the old hat of, oh man, that's going to screw your brains up, and they remember the commercials. This is your brain on drugs, but they didn't, and I didn't even at that time understand what we were listening to and what we were looking at was
Yep.
pure fucking propaganda, and it was
Amen.
going against this healing that we could have been getting, the same healing that folks go and you take Prozac, or you take Wellbutrin, you take all of this stuff, but
Mm.
all of those drugs, they're there because they're a synthetic drug, and they're trying to mimic the things that psychedelics and all the old medicines use, right? I'm
Yes.
curious,
Yes.
what type of healing did psychedelics bring for you, or let's just talk about just maybe like the LSD. Like, what was that like after?
I mean, so interesting that you bring up the stigma, because those were all the things that went through my mind. I mean, I did work with MDMA before that, which some people would call a psychedelic. I personally, being a facilitator of plant medicines and psychedelics, I don't consider it a psychedelic, but I worked with that first, and that did open my heart and kind of like ease me into being like, okay, I think I could put something other than a pharmaceutical in my body, right? And I will live through it. Then the LSD brought up every kind of fear of all the propaganda that had gone through my mind, all the videos and all the, you're going to jump off of a third story window, all that ridiculous, ridiculous stuff that then led me to realize that part of the reason there is that propaganda plane. They're busy today.
It's the joy and beauty of recording outside. I
Yes.
think it's worth it. I think the background and everything that you get from being outside is totally worth it. I
I'm
think it's
like, and the sunshine and this butterfly that's right here. I mean, come on.
this
But what
is
I
the this is the first interview that I've ever did with somebody that was outside and by like trees and stuff. And I never would have thought that it would be a marine that I would be having it.
I'm like the earth goddess Marine, like let's bring the tree energy into it. And what I realized, Tony, was like all of the propaganda, all the fears and everything that told me that I shouldn't be doing this. But I'll say that experience with LSD essentially helped me realize that when I face these fears and some of what I would call programming that had been in my mind, the other side of it is so beautiful and so powerful. Like the level of bliss, the level of interconnectedness and oneness that I could feel on the other side of fear was profound. So it was completely worth it in every way. And what that then did was it led me on what I might call a little scavenger hunt, a spiritual scavenger hunt that led me to different experiences. And even in that very first experience, the medicine said to me, LSD said, Susannah, this isn't just for recreation. This is not just for, quote, play, although everything is play, but this is actually for healing. This is for deep inner reflection, and you can go really deep with not just this medicine, but others. So it encouraged me, like that voice in my higher self, I would say, my connection with God encouraged me to go and find more ceremonial experiences where I could then be facilitated. And those experiences really, I would say, cracked me wide open in the surrender process.
Yeah, it's so different. It's so different than what everybody think. I think people think that, when people are doing like LSD or a mushroom ceremony or ayahuasca, that everybody just kind of sitting around like, and it's just like this big old party.
Right.
But it's like it's the absolute, it's the opposite of what people like. People are going for healing. There's people that have cancer or they're at the end stage of life and they're trying to figure out how do they deal with it. And I don't think the lay person would even be able to fucking understand the healing that takes place. I've literally seen somebody that has like a couple weeks to live and they're freaking afraid. They go to like an ayahuasca ceremony and they come out and they're like Biggie Smalls, I'm ready to die. And they're happy about it, which I think is, I could never understand that like at first. So with you, the LSD, what other psychedelics?
I mean, yeah, the fear of death is like such a powerful thing that all of these medicines can help heal. And I would say that fundamentally, that's what I was healing throughout all of them. And the next medicine, I think it was the first. These days, it's a little hazy which one came first. I'm like, which one? I could probably look back in my calendar, but I basically then went into ceremonial experiences, both with Bufo, which is the toad medicine, and is a very short in terms of time, like 20, 30-minute experience that really takes you very far out of your body for that period of time. And then I did a ceremonial experience with mushrooms, and both of those were one-on-one. And the Bufo experience was jarring, to say the least. Felt like a sledgehammer to my head. It was just like, kabam, like your ego is dying now. And that was hard for me to swallow and be with. I would say that took me about 6 years to integrate, and was one of the inspirations for why we even founded Metamorphosis. Because one thing I found with that experience was, in a lot of facilitators in that realm tend to send you off into space, and then there isn't a lot of integration on what do I do with myself now. And I felt very disconnected from my body, very disembodied, very disillusioned for at least a full year after that. And it sort of cracked me, right? Which was exactly what I needed. I mean, it was all perfect. It was absolutely what I needed. And I would love for people to have care and community throughout that process of being cracked wide open. And the ceremony then with psilocybin, which was within that same window of time, that one then helped me access my purpose. It really helped me not only heal my mother wound, which almost all, I would say everybody is born with some, some conflict with not just their birth mother, but the mother in general. And that helped me heal it and helped me recognize and remember that I am a priestess of this medicine. I serve it. I have served it in many lifetimes, and it's now, it's now resurfacing, and it was calling to me. So, so those were the two big ones. And then I ended up, a few years later, I sat with San Pedro in a very powerful ceremony, which is Wachuma. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gorgeous medicine. And then I went down to the jungle and I sat with ayahuasca for a dieta down there. Grandmother.
Yeah. So you've been there. Wow.
I didn't stop.
No, because it's like, no, I get it. Because it's like, and a lot of people, they don't get it. And I think they don't get it because of what we were talking about before. They look at it, they think about like all the propaganda, and even though it's legal in a bunch of places now. It's, or not legal, but it's like decriminalized, right?
Right. Yep.
But there's still this the stigma that you have. It's like where people, they'll take these medicines and stuff where it'll make them like all of a sudden like narcoleptic, but those are the people that are like, oh, why would you take mushrooms, or why would you take that? How do you heal from that? It's like, how the fuck do you heal from that shit that you're taking? That all of these like warnings, even like me and my daughter would sit there, and my 15-year-old daughter, one day we were watching TV, and I would say the warnings went on for probably about 10 minutes. She looked at me like, what? She said, what the fuck? And so I say that to say, to ask you, can you speak on how the healing from doing psychedelics, like how does this work in your mind? How does it work in your spirit, in your body? People don't get it. And it's hard for me to explain it.
It has taken me many years to be able to put words to it. And it is one of my gifts and purpose in this lifetime is to speak to it, to be able to describe it. So I deeply appreciate this question. And yeah, like every time you hear the side effects of those things, I feel like it's just a little glitch in the matrix, and they're being like, are you paying attention? Like, are you paying attention? Like, you'll have explosive diarrhea and maybe suicidal ideations if you take this medicine for your psoriasis. And you're like, excuse me? What?
I don't want to die.
Like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. So yes. So the way that I'll describe these on several layers, but the first is the mental layer and the, like, in the physical neuroplasticity of the brain, what plant medicines do. And I'll speak more specifically to psilocybin because that is the medicine I work with. But a lot of the research has shown that it quiets what's called the default mode network of the brain. And the default mode network is that pattern-based part of the brain that tells you, you get in your car, you use one hand to put the seatbelt on, you put your hands on the steering wheel, put your foot on the gas, right? And you know how to do it because it's all muscle memory. It's all built into your system over many, many, many different times of patterning and habitual behavior. And it quiets that part of the brain and then activates the creative parts of the brain. And as I've been tuning into this, I actually think it quiets a lot of the left hemisphere of the brain, which is the analytical part of the brain. And then it activates the right hemisphere of the brain, these creative centers in the brain. And what it also does is it redirects the serotonin, which are the little cars that take your neurotransmitters from one place to the other. And it changes where the synapses happen. So it is basically paving new pathways. So if you typically took the 405 to work every day in LA, and then suddenly there's a catastrophic event and the 405 is down, and maybe in your life that's like a divorce or a death, or you lose your job, then you no longer can take that same pathway. It's just not working anymore, right? Like the whole road is down. So you have to find a new pathway. And these medicines create what's called neuroplasticity, which allows serotonin to redirect to other parts of the brain and to give you new ideas. in the felt experience of that, the emotions of that, it feels like being a child again. It feels like curiosity. It feels like openness to new ideas. It feels like that little like ding, 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 like, oh, wow, like I've been banging my head against a wall about this particular problem. And now I have a very easy solution. And that's what neuroplasticity does for us. So yeah, so that's the mental layer. I'm curious, any questions on that? And then I can go into more of the like physical and spiritual layers.
It's beautiful. I think that's one of the best explanations that I've heard. And I I heard one the other day and I was like, that's a good way to explain it. But this takes the cake. This takes the cake. I was on Instagram and the guy was like, and I hope I can get this right. I'm good at telling my story, but not other people's story. But
I get that.
the guy's like, it's like, he said, it's like being on top of a mountain with a bunch of snow on the ground and you have skis and the
Mm-hmm.
only way that you can get from your house
Mm-hmm.
from down the mountain is on your skis, but you
Mm-hmm.
take skis every single day you take these skis and you go down, and what happens is it starts making these ridges, and you ride the ridges every single day, and these ridges, it could be good, it could be bad, it could be, whatever experience it is, but it's the same thing every single day. And the way that he explains psychedelics is, people want to get out of those ridges. People want to experience something new. They want to, just like how you said, they want to be more creative. They want to get out of that analytical mind, because I analytical minds, to me, they give me anxiety. But but he said it's like a damn blizzard. Like taking a psychedelic place in the right setting, it's like a blizzard and covering up those tracks and you making new ones. But I love the way that you explained it with the mind. I think that's beautiful. What about like the soul?
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, the soul and the spiritual layers, this is where, a lot of the scientific research ends, because we just don't really know as a species from a scientific perspective. We're like, I don't know, like maybe it works in your energy, but a lot of times we can't explain it in scientific terms. So what I'll describe is what I know in our ceremonies, and anecdotally. First of all, there's a lot of lineage healing that happens. There's a lot of intergenerational trauma that is healed. And the way I see this interacting with the physical body, because like this, it's basically the process of embodying your spirit in your physical body. And right now on the planet, our physical bodies are what I would call, in a very gentle and loving way, filthy. We are filthy. We are really, really dirty as a species because of what we're eating, because of what we are, consuming in media, because of what we're saying to each other. Just the way that we're living is creating a lot of buildup. And in the energy field and in the spiritual field, that looks like residue. And there is actual residue that is energetic, that builds up, and it actually gets stored in parts of the body. So psychedelics, and psilocybin in particular, psilocybin comes from mushrooms, as people know. And mushrooms are the natural detoxifiers of our planet. That's what they do. They turn death into life. They turn toxins into nutrients. And they do the same thing in your body. So they go in, and sometimes I imagine them like little creatures, like little garden gnomes, and they're coming into your body system, and they're eating away at and starting to alchemize the energetic residue that's built up in your body system. And what that does is it unclogs the pipes. Quite literally, we have energetic pipes that run through our body. We have an energy channel that then connects to our whole energy body that's outside. Like my energy body extends, probably 10 feet around me, and they unclog the pipes. So sometimes I just say, like, I'm just a plumber. I'm a spiritual plumber.
Like
That's what I'm here to do. And these little beautiful creatures in these plant medicines are here to unclog those pipes and to eat away at the residue. And then what happens during a ceremony is all that gets kicked up, and there's a process that I call off-gassing, where you get all of it kind of getting churned up, right? And it moves around in the body. So then you get lots of thoughts and lots of anxiety and a very intense experience. You get visualizations and you get all of these things that are happening at the same time. And then afterward, after the very intense, hard moments of clearing things from your body, you get an incredible amount of peace, because all of that residue has now turned into a higher frequency, and your body is no longer weighed down with all of the shame and the guilt and the other energies that you'd been holding on to for really for many lifetimes.
Wow. Wow. This is, I got to tell you, and this is no shade to any of the other people that have came on the show, but this is by far one of the best breakdowns of psychedelics that I've ever had on this show. I think this is beautiful. I think I might have to send this to one of the local colleges, because it's a master class on it. I think you're doing phenomenal. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And it's kind of like a follow up to as far as like the soul and spiritual level, as you being a facilitator in this, have you, and I think I know the answer to this, but I want the listeners to hear this. Have you ever had an experience where it wasn't just, in this circle that you're in, afterwards, you realize that it wasn't just your experience and something supernatural happens to where, you're on your journey and this person's on their journey, but they're all connected and you're all like there?
Yes, most definitely. And that is a gift of what these medicines help with too, right? When we engage the more creative parts of the brain and we step out a little bit of the prefrontal cortex and we're in that space of neuroplasticity, what then happens is we actually drop into our heart space. And I haven't talked a lot about that in this particular discussion, but because the science is not there yet, we don't actually have enough science to describe it, but heart intelligence starts to activate, and the full authority, the actual authority mind of our and we're learning that as a species. This is a whole new understanding of humanity that these medicines are teaching us. And what happens when you drop from the brain mind and you drop into the heart mind, then you get what we call at Metamorphosis co-creative trust. And that is this place of deep connection and interconnectedness in which we activate things like, and this is where I might lose some of your listeners, telepathy. And we activate merging our fields with one another, because I, as Susannah, am not actually separate from you. So like you gave me that beautiful reflection of how my descriptions are accurate and they really resonate with you. Well, that is not just me. That is you and me co-creating this together, right? Like your field and your intellectual capacity as a podcast host brings that out in me. And that's because you and I both have allowed our hearts in some way to merge for this session. And that happens on a very amplified scale in psychedelic ceremony. So what we see is, from the smallest things, like in any given ceremony, in a group ceremony, people who come to those ceremonies will almost always have identical stories or identical problems that they are working on. And another person across from them will have the answer that they needed, right? And then we call that like a mirroring effect of being able to heal a wound through another person. And then we will have experiences where people go to exactly the same place and they see each other in their mind's eye or in another dimension. And they're like, you were there with me in this other place. And they'll describe the same experience from the other, and they weren't talking to each other during the ceremony. So things like that are what we would call supernatural definitely happen.
Yes, probably listen to this and be like, that is complete and utter bullshit. But it is so true. It is so true, and you would have to experience it in order to get it. Like you definitely would have to experience it in order to get it. I've had friends that have gone off to different ceremonies, and they're like, "Oh my god, I had this like really crazy journey with you in it," and they explained it to me, and I'm not gonna say what it is because I know she listened to the
Sure.
show,
Yeah.
but explain it to me, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I had a dream about that. Are you fucking kidding me?
It-
You That's so crazy. And even, and even down, and like, and I think with this medicine, it almost like it brings you back to your childhood. And I know that's a different topic, but I'll never forget me and my little cousin. We were little kids. We probably was, I don't know, we probably was like 6 and 7, and we were taking a nap. And yeah, we were taking a nap. I was yeah, we were taking a nap. Our heads were kind of like together, and we were asleep. We woke up and we started talking, and we realized that we were having the same exact dream where we had stolen my auntie's car. I was driving and he was begging me to drive, but we literally had the same dream. And like whenever I tell anybody this story, they're like, "Oh no, no way, no way!" And I have to call him, and he'll tell you the exact same story. So I believe in this, and I wish there was more science out there for the more analytical people to be able to understand this. But then there's one part of me where I'm like, you know, they don't need to understand it because it's real, and I've seen it just like you've seen it. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. So what about, so we talked about the mind, we talked about the soul. What about the body? What kind of, whether it's your experience or people that you supported, what are you seeing as far as a healing in the body when it comes to psychedelics?
Yeah, huge, huge healing. And this is really what a lot of people come to us for, is for some kind of physical healing, right? Like a tangible thing. Because everything, if we look at the spiritual layer and then the mental layer and the physical layer, it's like it just densifies and densifies and densifies down into the physical realm. And then it exists in your life in some way. So whatever's happening on the spiritual layer and whatever's happening on the mental layer is going to have an impact on the physical layer. And that's usually the layer where people start to notice it. So we have seen incredible healings, like physical healings, where we've completely healed, what we call completion healing, because let me give So we call it completion healing because right now in the healthcare industry, there's really symptom management care. That's what we're focusing on, is like, how do we manage all of the symptoms of something, but never actually heal the root cause? And at Metamorphosis, that is really our vision, is to do root cause healing, which I like to call completion healing. That means, for example, when someone comes to us with something like PMDD, which is a very common ailment for women's wombs, or endometriosis, right? We have a lot of chronic conditions that people come to us with because everything they've tried in the normal healthcare industry is not working, or it's just managing the pain of it. And what we then realize is that there is an energetic block, or there is an incredible amount, for example, of anger energy or rage energy. A lot of women have a lot of rage energy that's stored in their wombs for good reason, because there have been some, many different harmful things done, not only to women now, but
Ancestral
over the
too.
course, ancestral, communal, collective. And so they're holding this rage energy in their womb. And in the typical healthcare industry, they would just be like, okay, well, let's help them not feel that pain. Whereas in our ceremonies, we are addressing the rage energy directly. And like I said, we're cleaning the pipes. So we're helping them move it. And once they move that, then that chronic condition is gone. it's gone. So they no longer have any of the quote symptoms of that chronic condition. And we've seen that healed. We've seen Crohn's disease healed. We've seen back pain, like severe back pain that involved surgeries and things like that, just gone in one ceremony for good. We've seen migraines, headaches, cluster headaches, like all sorts of those, fibromyalgia. I mean, all of those things are just completely gone because we're working on the physical layer, the mental and emotional layer, and the spiritual layer all at the same time, which means that that person no longer needs to experience that pain anymore. And then I would say when we reduce or remove the residue that I spoke of before, then you also get healing of things like arthritis and joint pain, because a lot of that joint pain is actually a buildup of energy, like energy matter that's almost matter, but it's not quite matter. And it's literally like hiding in the joints. It's hiding in the fascia. It's hiding in between the little muscle fibers. And all of that is creating significant pain for people.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, if you would have told me this like 10 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, okay. But no, I get it. I get it. I've seen it. Oh my God, I've seen it. With the laws changing and stuff, do you feel like public perception of this medicine is changing too? Are you seeing a difference?
Yes, there is. I mean, just this conversation, right? You said like 5 years ago, you would have been like, okay, like, sure, Susannah, whatever. And that's partly because of the ways that we were programmed. And I want to just give like a very, very brief history here of why there was such propaganda and programming around this. Because and why there's such a shift now, which of course also has spiritual implications. But back in the 1960s, when there was a big boom of LSD, right? LSD was discovered in the 80s and then made its way to America from Germany or Switzerland. Anyway, Central Europe.
Yeah, LSD was I think it was, you're right.
Yeah, Albert Hoffman was.
Albert Hoffman, yeah.
Yes. And so that made its way to the United States, and then everybody got really excited about it, right? They were like, woohoo, like this is amazing. And they were doing a lot of research on it that really wasn't held in contained ways. And it was very creative and in some ways was also harmful. And of course, the government was testing with it and things like that. So that led to a big movement of pacifism led by Timothy Leary that then became a threat to the US government, because people were, his slogan was tune in, turn on, drop out, and basically like leave the systems and don't go to war, which ended up, really impacting how we engaged in the Vietnam War. And for the government and for Richard Nixon, that was no good. We did not want our able-bodied men to become pacifists. So it was a war, right? It was actually a war against drugs because they felt like they were causing people to drop out of the war effort. And now why the tides are turning, at least in the physical realm, is because people are now dropping out of the workplace and we're dropping out of life because we're so overwhelmed and so anxious and so overstimulated that we're all exhausted. And there's such a pandemic of anxiety and depression and even suicide, as we know with our veteran, brethren, that it is of service that the government support this, because they're now seeing the healing impacts. So that's one of the reasons why the stigma is shifting, at least, like I said, on the physical layer. But it's now in sort of the government's interest to pour more energy into it. And so we're seeing a collective shift. And I believe, I know that we're living in the time of a great awakening, which is raising people's awareness and consciousness. And we want to consciously evolve ourselves. And this is an opportunity and a way for people to do that.
Yeah. Do you think that like in our lifetime, do you think that it'll be completely legal?
Oh yeah.
You think
Oh yeah.
so?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Really?
Yeah. It the uh pace of evolution already, as we've seen with AI and some of these other technologies, has become exponential, which means that they've actually even shortened the generations. Did you know that? They shortened the generations to 14 years. So generations used to be 20 years apart. They've shortened them to 14 years because the world is such a different place 14 years later that we have to segment people in shorter and shorter groups. And I think we're going to see that level of exponential growth. Like at some point, every single year will be a generation because we're moving at such a fast pace in terms of our human evolution right now. And I have, own kind of connection with divine that guides me in that, but I absolutely know that our species will be evolving faster than we could ever imagine, even in the next, let's say, 20 years.
Oh, that would be so cool. That,
Yeah.
oh my God,
We're watching it. We get to be here for it. I'm like
that
super
would be
stoked.
that would be so cool. And it shouldn't even be a big deal, because it should not be a big deal. I could literally get in, and the reason why it shouldn't be a big deal because it's coming from the earth naturally. I could literally get in the car. I could
Hallelujah.
literally get in the car and go to the college evergreen down the street and find
Yep.
and find this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can go forage. It's like right there in the park.
It's like right there,
Yes,
right? It's
right there.
not, yeah, it's not man made. It's freaking, it's made by God,
I
right?
know. And
Why
it's
is it?
also like hundreds of billions of years old.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not, and I'm not gonna lie. It's not something that I would, tell my kids, hey, listen to my podcast on psychedelics. I did this
Yeah.
episode because, of course, I don't want them trying it. Um, not right now, right?
Yeah, I
Not
was gonna say it's an age thing, right? Like how old are your children?
well. The two youngest, they're 15 and 17. And
Okay.
I feel like you have to get to a certain point to where you're like, okay, yeah, I feel this call in to do this work because it is work. It's not a thing where you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna take my vitamin or nothing. It is work. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of people have is that I'm gonna take this stuff that these people are calling medicine and it's gonna be all right. And like just like you said, when you first took the medicine the first time, it took you on a journey. It was, I'm sure, like valleys
Yeah.
and peaks. How the hell do you deal with that? And so, can you speak to that a little bit, like of the container that you need to be in, the set and the setting, and the integration that you need to have in order to do this, so that people aren't just like, "Oh, I think this is a good idea. Let's do it," which could work out to be
It could
perfect.
work.
It could
It could
work
work.
out,
I mean,
but it
it,
could
it
work out
worked
to
for
be.
me. I learned the hard way, just like when your parent is like, don't touch the hot stove. And you're like, I'm going to put my finger right on it. We sometimes do have to learn through experience and through what we call a posteriori learning, which is on the job. Or you can learn through other people's experience. And in this case, I encourage people to learn from my experience because I did it the hard way. And there were experiences that I had where the container was not held beautifully. And then where I had no container at all and I dosed too much. And that experience was really, really hard to get through and then very difficult for me to integrate. And because I learned those lessons, those hard lessons that were kind of like a smack upside the head, I can now come to you and say, "Hey, here's the way that I'd recommend you do it so that you can have the most not just easeful but most effective
Mhm.
experience possible." And those really are I really like the way that we do it. This a set, setting, and dosage, right? Those are the three ways that we really describe it in the psychedelic industry. And set is mindset. So you want to have an intention going in. So a lot of people will be like, let's go take some mushrooms and go to the mall. I'm like, oh no. And the intention, first of all, there's really no intention. And the other intention is just to like have a good time. Well, this is medicine, and we have to respect that we are working with a conscious being. That's why at Metamorphosis, we don't say we are using the medicine. We are working with, we're partnering with, we're sitting with. It is guiding you in a co-creative experience. So having an intention when you meet said being and it's inside of your body is highly, highly recommended. And then the second piece is setting, which is the place. And malls, I don't recommend psychedelic because typically you're going to be interacting with a lot of people, a lot of different energies that are unpredictable. And what you want to have is a container that is a little more predictable in terms of the structure and the physical space, and you want to experience safety in the container itself, which is also why I do recommend people work with a facilitator. They can ensure that you are in a safe place, and then whether you have a facilitator or just a friend who's a trip sitter, you have someone who is physically there and can assist you and can hold the safety of the physical space around you. And then the third piece is, and also on the setting piece, as my dog climbs the tree behind me.
I was just, how did that big ass dog climb up that tree like that?
That's the magical world that I live in. But that I would say is another piece is like earth. You want to have earth around you. You want to be near the natural world. And the last piece is dosage. And that's why a facilitator can help you too, because they know the medicine that they're serving. They know the proper dosing of that medicine, given the intention and the goal that you're wanting to focus on. And then you're not going to be underdosing or overdosing. And both of those, both under and over, can be uncomfortable. It can take you into a place of very intense anxiety, and you want to get it like just right. And that's why working with an expert who does it quite literally for a living and works with that medicine all the time, they can both ensure your physical safety, your spiritual safety, because you are entering into realms like when you open your mind and you create that neuroplasticity and you enter into the more spiritual and energetic space, you're also opening yourself to other dimensions. And there are many other things in other dimensions. So you want to have someone who's there to know how to work through those things with you.
Beautifully said. I'm curious, who would psychedelics be for? Like, as far as like, what type of person would you say is ready for this work, and who would psychedelics not be for?
This is a great question because I feel like I've been asking myself this question. I've heard a lot of people say psychedelics aren't for everybody. And every time I hear that, I'm like, I don't really feel that's true. I actually feel like everyone has the potential of being able to benefit from psychedelics. So I do believe they are for everyone. However, if you are not called, chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, they're for you. That's what I would say, right? If you have any kind of calling of interest of like, you see the word psychedelic, you see the word plant medicine, you see the word psilocybin or LSD, and you're like, curious, I want to know. Like that means they're for you. And so I am speaking, and you and I together are speaking to the people who they are for. And the people who they are not for are not listening, are literally never going to hear this message ever. So I would say they are for everyone who is listening here. And they are also for people who are ready to transform and are ready for some kind of transformation. And you yourself will know that because you will either sabotage yourself in not being able to do them, right? So maybe you'll reach out to somebody and you're like, oh, I'm interested. But then like everything will stand in your way. You'll be like, oh, it's too expensive. Oh, I don't have time. But I got to go to work. I got to whatever, right? Like you'll literally sabotage the process. So you won't be able to sit with them. And that's how you know that you weren't ready in that moment. There is a self-selection process, and they are for people who are often I find them to be the most effective for people who are in a state of transition or transformation
Mhm.
and are ready to change something. And that means that you also need to be willing to be humbled, right? Like you need to know, you need to be able to what we call repent, like, but really repentance is the concept of metanoia, which means to change your mind. It means the ability to change your mind. And in order to change your mind, you have to realize that what you were doing before is no longer working for you. Which is a level of humility of being like, oh yeah, like I've been doing that my whole life. And now it's just not the way. And that's where you find the most benefit from psychedelics.
What about if you have like bipolar or schizophrenia?
Yes, you will notice that I did not say those people are excluded. I personally work with individuals who have been diagnosed with borderline, bipolar. Schizophrenia is actually misunderstood in our society. What we're talking about when we say schizophrenia, we're actually talking about dissociative identity disorder, where
Mhm.
you have a part of yourself that has dissociated so far that your psyche has now fractured. Psychedelics are the great integrators, and they help us come back into wholeness. Now, if you have one of these conditions, you are going to be turned away from the venues and the facilitators who do not feel comfortable working with that type of ailment. And there are facilitators out there who do feel comfortable with that because maybe they themselves, like me, went through a reintegration process where we reintegrated parts of our psyche. So we know the path and a safe way to do that. There have been cases in which people's psyches have fractured. I find them to be the most prevalent in the ayahuasca community.
Mm.
There's a variety of reasons for that, that there's
Fracture
more
before or after the medicine?
fracturing after. So
Okay.
like and people who came in maybe with a condition that they didn't speak to and
Mm.
then had more fracturing as a result, right? So there was like a deepening of that fracture. So I find that to be the most common in that world. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but I also trust, like I trust what needs to happen in those containers to make them safer. But what I would recommend is if you have a diagnosis like that, if you are diagnosed with borderline, bipolar, schizophrenia, dissociative identity disorder, anything in which your psyche or your mental capacity has been fractured, call in a facilitator who is ready and willing to work with you and you're not lying to them. You're not saying, oh no, I don't have this, or it's not so bad. You are being truthful about your diagnosis, which then helps you select the right person and for them to also self-select out if that's not what they want to hold. And also, you absolutely need to have additional types of somatic based and cognitive behavioral based therapies
Wow.
alongside something like this so that you have the integration piece. And that will actually lead me into talking about integration, but like for these particular types of diagnoses, we need to have an additional person and probably a whole group of people who are holding space for that person's reintegration. And it can't just be through psychedelics.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad that you said that. That is beautiful because so what I got from that is, you know, it's definitely appropriate for those people, and but it needs to be with the right person. It needs
Mhm.
to be in the right setting, somebody that's willing to
Yep.
do it, and somebody that's experienced, because otherwise it could potentially be dangerous. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. There can be a deepening of your fracture through working with psychedelics, particularly if there is lying involved. And one of the challenges with the bipolar, borderline, dissociative identity disorder case is that lying, or really like lying to yourself, is
Hmm.
a common theme, right? It's a common thing that happens because you have basically like a rogue part of you that's doing its own thing over here. So you do have to get to a state of integration where you can at least understand and have even like a diagnosis like that. The worst cases happen in which someone should have been diagnosed with something like this, but they never were. And then they go into a ceremony and we realize that there was, and dissociative identity disorder is the biggest one for this because it's hiding. It's like you just don't even know that there's this whole exiled part. Internal family systems therapy, like for everyone listening on this call, start internal family systems therapy, and you will find out if you should be diagnosed with any of these things.
Yeah, definitely, because you're looking back and you're looking at your lineage, and if it's close, and yeah, no, I hear you. No, I look at psychedelics, and three different phases. It's the before, you have the call in, you're seeing it all over, you're seeing like a documentary on TV, you're seeing your neighbor tell you, oh, about this little thing, and it starts like popping up, like you're already, in my opinion, already kind of like in the medicine. And then you have the moment where you're preparing, you have the moment to where you're preparing to go, and you're doing the diet, and you actually go and you experience the medicine. And then the third part, where I don't think a lot of people pick up, is the integration. And I was wondering if you can speak on the integration, and maybe specifically how you do the integration, because I'm telling you, I really feel good about this conversation. I really feel like if somebody is needing some healing from anxiety, depression, or stuff that's going on with their body, stuff that's going on with their life, I really feel like that you would be the person to support them with that. And I don't say that freaking lightly. I've never said that, but I really feel like you would be that person. So what would that container look like with you, and why is it important?
We at Metamorphosis have our method, you might call it, but it really is, it's metamorphosis, right? It's like the stages of the butterfly coming out of its chrysalis. And the first phase that you described, the preparation, right? Where it's kind of coming into your field. And we have an actual preparation process that starts the integration before your ceremony. So there's at least 4 weeks, like a full month of preparation material and things that you have to fill out and things like that help us to understand more about you. And then we have the experience itself, which of course has a lot of like coaching and integrative techniques in it. And on the back end, that's where the work starts, and where we start. And eventually you start to get into play, which is that last layer of the spiritual awakening, where you get to like play with this new version of yourself. But before that play can happen, you have to embody everything that you learn. And what we do at Metamorphosis is first of all, we like arm you with every kind of resource you could possibly imagine. We're like, here is your new, like, here's your kit for your new consciousness, right? You've just elevated your consciousness to this next layer. And now you're going to have to go on a bit of a cleanse in your life, because a lot of the things that you were doing before this ceremony are no longer going to work after. I mean, that includes even what you're watching on TV and what you're consuming in your food. So we don't tell you how to do all of those things, because a lot of that is individual. But what we do is during that critical period, there's a window called a critical window. And that is when the neuroplasticity is the highest. And for psilocybin, it's anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks. And during that period of time, we are giving you a lot of things to listen to, like affirmations, guided meditation, and maybe podcasts like this, right? Listening to not only our team, but also encouraging you to go seek out the topics that you want to listen to, but you're feeding your brain and your mind healthy, high vibrational material. We are then doing post-integration calls with you one-on-one so that you get actual care, and we can also untangle things that may have been residual from the ceremony and didn't fully untangle in our experience, right? Sometimes it takes sometimes it takes years. But in the first month or so, you're going to have a lot of those little things to untangle.
For
Yeah.
those of you that are listening to this podcast, I'm going to encourage you to like go to YouTube and look at the video. Oh, we stopped a couple of times, but the view is absolutely worth it. It is beautiful, beautiful trees in the background. It definitely matches the setting. So go to YouTube and check out this video.
Just like have a moment of Zen. I should just like go into like a meditative state so you can see me like inspire you to have a moment of integration. That's a great segue, because we encourage you to then go slower. So yes, we give you material to listen to watch, and then we hold your hand in that, holding you accountable to the actions that you agreed and you committed to yourself at the end of the ceremony. And integration is really the yin part of the ceremony. So there's the yang part, which is really where you're like doing the thing, you're ingesting the medicine. The yin part is the rest and the allowing and the receiving. And this is where the feminine energy comes in. So we encourage you to create more space in your life. And that is one of the biggest challenges for most people, is to create stillness and space where they just sit in a quiet moment and realize like, hey, you and I have been talking for an hour, and now I've got all of this new information in my head. I really need to just sit for a quiet moment to allow this to ground into my body. And that's a big piece of our integration process. And then on top of that, we have community calls that are weekly with our community. And we have an entire community of incredible human beings who are a blend of like science and spiritual experts that we then encourage you to do integrative sessions with. So I've got one of our brilliant facilitators facilitates what's called EFT, emotional freedom therapy, which is tapping, where you're tapping on very specific places in the body, and then you're affirming these new belief systems. And we encourage everyone to do things like that help to physically embody the change in your being.
So dope. There aren't many places that do it the way that you do it. I know some people, they do like the calls and stuff like that, but it's not a community to where it's ongoing. Like what you said is typically pay to play, and as soon as you're done paying, they're done with you. They're like, what's your name? So if you could leave our audience with one truth about healing, what would that be?
One truth about healing. Trust yourself. Like, trust that little inner voice that's the deepest. Oh, we left.
No.
Okay, great. Sorry. I thought I was like, oh no, he left me. That's my little inner voice sometimes. It's like, I need community. And that's what led me on this journey, was I need to be surrounded by humans that I love deeply. And that led me deeper and deeper and deeper into creating metamorphosis. And if I had not listened to that voice, if I had not kept following that tiny little intuitive voice, I would not be sitting here talking to you with this level of clarity and peace in my life. So listen to that voice and really trust yourself, because whatever it's saying to you is true, like capital T, true. And you can trust that voice over all the other outside voices that are out there that try to take you away from yourself.
Beautifully. So where can the viewers and the listeners, where can they go to learn more about your work, and hopefully to learn how to work with you? Because if I'm not mistaken, not only do you do integration, but you do ceremonies too, right?
We do. So we are very intentionally building what I would call the new healthcare industry at Metamorphosis. And which is a bold statement. I was like, is
No,
that what we're doing? So that means that what we do is we have the ceremonies, which can look like micro ceremonies. We just had a big festival called MetaFest that we hold. That's unbelievable, and that has microdosing opportunities. Then our certified facilitators facilitate one-on-one ceremonies. And those facilitators are attuned through a 12 to 15 month initiatory program that we do called Emergence, where we graduate initiated facilitators. And in that program, we also hold group retreats where we do deep dive macro sessions. So if you are interested in ever being a facilitator, that's where you can engage with some of our group events. But we do a lot of one-on-one work with all of our certified facilitators, myself included. And then we also have microdosing programs. You can order a sacrament kit from us because we're a church. We're a 508c1a entheogenic church. And you can find all of this and much more on our website at metamorphosis.global, where you can also meet Sophia, who is our beautiful, beautiful AI guide, and she will guide you through a microdosing journey and give you tools and techniques for how to ground your microdosing experience.
so that's so dope. And y'all do, is it psilocybin and ayahuasca or anything else, or?
Yeah, we have in our statement of beliefs, we cover several different medicines depending upon what facilitator you're working with. I personally work exclusively with psilocybin because it is, and I work with our community cultivated medicine that's called Trinity. That's a very beautiful, beautiful strain of three strains that are subgenetically blended together. We also serve 5-MeO-DMT in titrated pens called Jaguar. One of our facilitators holds that. And we are integrating a microdosing regimen with San Pedro, with Huachuma, and that is coming into our field. And we also cover things like rapé, which is the sort of tobacco that goes up the nose.
Feel like you got shot in the head with a shot.
Yeah.
Talk about freaking
Woo!
clearing yourself and grounding before meditation. Oh my God. As soon as you said it, I felt it.
Woo! Yeah, you're like spicy. Like it goes right up into your brain. But rapé is a very beautiful grounding medicine that's also helps to open the heart space, and several of our facilitators serve that. But we want to keep it simple, keep it really simple and clean. And we don't work with ayahuasca in our community, but we have many circles that we can recommend you to that are safe and held well. And we also don't work with medicines like peyote because we do not hold a lineage to them, and we honor the native peoples that hold those. And we do exist in the spirit of reciprocity and are respectful of indigenous and ancient lineages that have held a lot of these medicines. We consider the lineage we work with psilocybin in to be quite modern and in the frequency of Christ consciousness. So if that resonates with you, then that's the work we're doing.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Susannah. This has been a really, really, really great episode. I feel way more informed than I was before. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on Leaders Lead and talk to me and educate our listeners and our viewers. It's been a pleasure.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for spreading this word and for being such a beautiful host. I mean, you help me give beautiful answers. So thanks for the co-creation.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to Leaders Lead the podcast. This is super good. I would encourage you to go back and take some note. Go and look at the website if this is something that you're interested in. Definitely do it. Definitely go to the website. Definitely do your research. There is so much healing in plant medicine, and of course, because you were a witness to what happened today as far as this episode. So if this conversation, if it hit home to you, I want to personally invite you to join our brand new community, Leaders Lead community. You can go to leadersleadthepodcast.com. It is a space where leaders like you can connect, grow, and keep these conversations going. It's my gift to you. It's a real community. It's built around courage, healing, and leadership. I'm even going to bring our guests. I'm going to invite the guests that we had today into the platform. So if you have some questions and you want to connect directly, you can go ahead and head over to leadersleadthepodcast.com and join us. There's a button. It's a red button. You click it. It says join the community. And I'll tell you, I just started this community. So it's a benefit for you. So if you got any questions about the guests or any questions about whatever, just tag me and I'll see it. It's my baby. I'm going to be on it from now until freaking whenever, because I believe in the messages that we have on this platform. And I also believe in doing my very best to make sure that you're equipped with not just the message, but equipped with like, how do you do these things that we're talking about? With that being said, I really appreciate you for listening in and sticking with us. It's been almost an hour and a half. I definitely don't take your time lightly. Thank you and see you next time. That was great. If you enjoyed this podcast, well, I'm sure you enjoyed it. If you're still here with us, what I want you to do is head over to your favorite podcast and streaming network and give us a download, subscribe to the channel, and also let us know what you think about the show. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for the things that you've done. Thank you for the things that you're doing. And especially thank you for the things that you're going to do, because I know that you're going to do something amazing.